Hello, today is the 27th of May and we did the 6th lesson on English for specific purposes. And I made another PowerPoint as usual. And we start off with our homework. Last week, people did business English, but still doing it. A week before we did legal. So business/legal related words we went over, some of these words. I chose the most difficult. Arbitration meaning negotiated settlement over a dispute. Defamation when you get sued for saying something publicly, like on a Facebook page. En banc is on bench for the judges when they're there. Nolo contendere is no contest, and sanction is a form of punishment. And the other homework, which was from last week's PowerPoint, was summarising Krashen's 5 hypotheses of second language acquisition. And I showed Ilis's version of that. And then today we looked at integrated learning syllabi, and these syllabi, plural for syllabus, are based on various authors. So we looked at 4 authors. So it was Hutchinson and Waters, or those 2 for one book. Dudley Evans, that's actually one person. Strevens and Widowson. So integrated approach to making an ESL syllabus. Okay. Oh, it's gone out of order. Whoopsie daisy. So Hutchinson and Waters in 1987, they have the most basic, well, this says 60s, so maybe they wrote the book in the 60s. So their view on ESP is basically that ESP is a phenomenon that has grown out of emerging trends. And then we had Strevens. He further elaborated on what ESP involves, and that it has the need to meet the needs of the learners, and we have to have a particular vocation or occupation, and that has to be language appropriate. And the variables are that it be restricted to the language skills, and that there's no one set of methodology. And then Dudley Evans elaborated further still. They've got 5 variables as opposed to only 2, saying that, yes, same as previously Strevens, that it is specific to the discipline or the vocation or the industry, and specific to, in certain teaching situations, what you can teach, but also that it's usually for adults or into advanced, and that we assume that people already have a good language of English. And then we looked at what things to consider in order to have a successful ESP class. And we had Robinson as well. So he says that a good English specific class is goal orientated. So we looked a bit about goal orientated or task orientated English. Widowson, not much about Widowson, just that he says it's process orientated. Process meaning to understand it and use that learning for your next learning, whereas the task or skills is more for people who want to be a beautician or a hairdresser. And questions to ask, looking at the needs analysis, these sort of questions. So questions you should ask the academic manager and the team you're working with. A lot of those questions will be answered if you do a good needs analysis. So the ESP course comes about looking at what language you need to teach, how you're going to teach it, and the results of the data that you've collated from your needs analysis. And then we had these 2 people also wrote a book about ESP. Basically, their book was not about the syllabus, but just what contributes to the success or failure of a good ESP course. Again, so that sort of thing. Approaches an ESP, so we touched a little bit on it. So language-centered, so that's more, I would say for example, legal, that's high-level registrar. So you need to have very formal English, so that means grammatically correct English. So maybe if you're doing legal English, you might base more on language. And skills-centered, I'd say that's more hairdressing, beautician, flight attendant, nursing. And we looked at the theoretical and pragmatical side, or pragmatic, I should say, theoretical and pragmatic sides of skills based. So the theoretical is actually knowing the link between certain skills and strategies and being able to actually produce those skills and strategies in discourse, conversation. And pragmatic is looking at the skills that you need and being able to do those skills effectively. And that was Widdowson. He wrote a book about this sort of stuff. Skill-centered approach. So yeah, with the skills, you need to work out what we're aiming for. So as a hairdresser, to converse with hairdressers or fellow hairdressers and your clientele, be able to sell products, maybe you make a commission. So what situation you envisage them doing in the future, and then how to get them there. So from what you might find out from the local hairdressers in the area, what they need for their staff when they speak English, you use that data to do a situation analysis, and then you'd make the syllabus, and then you'd collect the materials, and in the end you'd conduct an evaluation as you do with all of them. There's learner-centred, which I couldn't really think of an example apart from maybe Aborigines in the outback doing remote tourism, because you might not be familiar with the content or the students. So then you'd be doing more of a bottom-up style of ESP, working out what's needed. But it does exist, so I agree that skills and task-based is probably best, or language-based if it's highly intensive formal English. So we looked at needs analysis again. So this is an example needs analysis form, a very basic one. So if you're doing a hospitality course, maybe you wouldn't have just future, you would say, what are your goals for working in the hospitality industry, for example. So this is the present situation analysis. This is the target situation analysis, and this is the language situation analysis. So those three things and the needs analysis helps us work out the syllabus. From that, you work out the materials, and then the actual course designer integrates the materials and the meaningful functional language that they'd be using in their vocation/industry. A lot of the stuff I just showed you was taken from this PowerPoint. And then this is a bit of a separate conversation. We talked about the level you need, because I find this confusing. People say that they are TOEFL 84. Does that mean you are more than 6.5? Well, we worked out yes, no. We just have to look at this. So basically 6.5 is the acceptable level to do an ESP course. So you can see 6.5 equals upper int level, or 79 on the TOEFL. Trinity, you could say, what does ISE stand for? International something or other. 190 for Cambridge, or the Curriculum of European Framework would be C1 level to get into an ESP course. Then we talked about the assignment, and I gave my version of it looking at hospitality, which I'll not explain because it's all self-explanatory. And then I gave homework for the next week, which is hospitality based. So that hospitality based 5 to 10 words subjects are just coming up. Next week, here we go. So Nacho will do that one, Melina this one, Suzanne, Elissa, And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing the leftover, because we've done so far, we've done medical, we've done legal, we've done business, now we're doing hospitality. So these are just other little, sometimes even niche areas, like for example, like counselling. I don't know if it exists English for counselors, maybe it does exist, I don't know. Aviation does exist. The gig economy, so maybe there's English for Uber drivers. Perhaps that course exists, but anyway, we can look at that too. And that's where I got my information from today, and that's the end of my contracted version. Okay, and I'll stop recording.